Live look now at Indianapolis, where lawmakers are set to speak on the religious freedom law. Indiana Governor Mike Pence defending that law, saying that it's designed to protect people from being forced to do something that goes against their beliefs.
There's a lot of people across this country who you're looking at Obamacare and the Hobby Lobby decision, looking at other cases, who feel that their religious liberty is being infringed upon, and the Religious Freedom Restoration Act at the federal level and all the states now, including Indiana, who have it, are simply about addressing that. This is not about discrimination.
So what's it all about? Joined by Katie Pavlett, the news editor for townhall.com and a Fox News contributor. David Goodfriend is a former deputy staff secretary to President Bill Clinton. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
So this law was enacted, the federal law, under when Bill Clinton was president of the United States 20 years ago. So it exists already across the country. It already exists in 19 states on the state level as well to back it up. So why is this becoming such a political firestorm now that Indiana's decided to do just the same thing? David, let me start with you.
Sure. Well, I think this is a firestorm now because of the way the law is being applied and will be applied. And the reason I can say that with such confidence is because you just have to look at who lined up for and against the bill in Indiana. I mean, you had Walmart and the Indiana Chamber of Commerce lining up against this bill because they felt that that climate was not going to be conducive to business. And lo and behold, they turned out to be right, because the minute that bill was signed into law, Angie'sList.com, which is based in Indiana, canceled a $40 million headquarters expansion plan. The message, I think, is that when you enact laws like this, that on their face seem fine, but in practice are really used to discriminate, it hurts business, it hurts job creation.
I don't know how you spin forward so completely on that. Let's just get everybody on the same page here at home in terms of what the law actually says. It allows a person's free exercise of religion to be, quote, substantially burdened by a law only if the law furthers a, quote, compelling governmental interest. So it says that you know, that there's a stretch to make to take away what you're arguing is your religious freedom, that there's a burden that is attached to that. So, Katie, you know, there's a lot of outcry, obviously, and people believe that this is going to be used as a tool for gay discrimination. Is that true?
Mm-hmm. It certainly isn't true. And Martha, we've come to a point in this country, a very dangerous point, that when you decide to practice your freedom of religion, which is embedded in the Constitution, the First Amendment protects your right to freely exercise your own religion, that is now somehow turned into discrimination, which isn't the case. This law that Indiana is passed and is planning to continue to use and implement, the language is pretty much identical to the legislation that President Bill Clinton signed into law that was passed by the Senate, and 97-3 was co-sponsored by Chuck Schumer, who now ironically is criticizing this law, and was unanimously passed in the House in the 90s. And so for them to have this hysterical outcry, not based on fact, but essentially saying if you want freedom of religion, you are a bigot and you're discriminating, end of discussion. And we've seen that happen with these boycotts, which really have nothing to do with what the law actually says.
Well,
and one more thing, it should be noted too that there are plenty of laws in Indiana and around the country and states that have implemented laws like this that have anti-discrimination laws already on the books that make it illegal to discriminate in the first place.
Michael
and those laws still
McConnell,
apply.
who's a former appellate court judge, writes that the RFRA statutes in no business has been given the right to discriminate against gay customers or anybody else under this law. So it seems like there's a lot of forces that are going against Indiana on this, and now they're saying in the news conference that we showed you on the way in that they will work to clarify the law to make it more clear for people who you know, think that it's misinterpreted or don't understand the letter of the law. Go ahead, David.
Thank you. Look, I think we all should acknowledge that religious freedom is a bedrock American principle and is, as my colleague just said, codified in the First Amendment of the Constitution. But there are always limiting principles, even to our constitutional rights. For example, I have the freedom of speech, but there can be a law prohibiting me from yelling fire in a crowded movie theater out of a concern for safety. What's the limiting principle here? Well, we've seen, for example, when the Mormon Church wants to allow polygamy among its members, that there is an American law prohibiting polygamy. That law is upheld under the principle that not every practice can be justified under religious freedom. And in this case, what we have is a law that purports to say we're just going to allow religious freedom, but in fact could impinge upon the freedom of other Americans. And that's not a new situation where bedrock American principles of law are sort of at loggerheads with one another. What I think is different this time, though, and what I think is relevant to our political moment, is that we seem to be witnessing in real time a battle for the soul of the Republican Party. You have, as I mentioned, businesses that have come out, the Republican Chamber of Commerce come out against the law, religious conservatives coming out for it. This will decide in many ways how the presidential Republican politics play out.
It has nothing to do with Republicans at all. In fact, it was passed overwhelmingly on a federal level years ago by Democrats and signed into law by a Democratic president.
20 years ago does not count as today.
Which leaves open the possibility that it's being used now for another purpose, since so many people seem to have agreed on it in the first place. But you know, it does protect the right to take these issues to court, and it does not include, according to the letter of the actual law, any protection of discrimination against anybody. So we'll see. We got to go, guys. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you, David. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
We'll finish up next time.